Hindus composed music for gods. And that music was not for rhythm. Tick, 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 tick. No, absolutely not like that. So Hindus composed music for anharmonic overtones. What is that? It is not a one. If the fundamental frequency is F0, it is not one time, two times, three times, four times. It's not a 1F0, 2F0, 3F0, 4F0, as you can find in the Western music. It was 1, 1.31, then next one would be 2.31 times the frequency of the previous one. So it is totally rational numbers and not integral multiples. So why Hindus did that? Why Hindus were so obsessed? It is easy for mathematics. The Hindus created the number system. Then why were they so stupid to create the frequencies in complex numbers, 1.31, 2.17 fundamental frequencies? Wait, there is even more, not just anharmonic overtones. They were so obsessed, they used to switch off like ta in tabla. You press it on a finger on the skin. There are 7 layers of skin. Prime number of skins would be there. And this stroke, you close the fundamental part and allow the higher overtones to form, and that will go inside the mind of a listener and they will improvise the fundamental note. So it is not easy to be a listener of Hindu music. Because if the Hindu instruments are to be used, following Bharata Muni's Nata Shastra, 4 different kind of instruments were there, where you send wind to control it, where you stroke with, there should be some string and there should be some metallic sounds. So 4 different classes of musical instruments as Bharata Muni classified. But the fundamental thing is that first, you follow completely different kinds of overtones, and that were connected to the sensory system's intensity. And if you check the ratios and others, you will find our ears ratios. We have in our cochlea, we have fractal pathways. So it's a kind of a Fibonacci sequence. So it is not a homogeneous sequence. So, so Hindus understood, because Hindus composed music not for entertainment, not for body movement of ass and something. So it was for worshipping the god. So if you try to worship the god, you have to listen to the Brahman. You can listen to the Brahman only if your musical architecture, the grammar of your music, is proportional to the sensor's hardware architecture. That's why our ratios of frequencies were totally different. Just like our time scale, Hindu time scale was totally different. It was never linear. In some regions, 5 different regions had different kind of units of time. And that's why Brahma had five heads. I told that story long back, why Brahma and Shiva got into fighting. However, getting back to our context, that music. So musical instrument, we have to create musical instrument in such a way that they do not create harmonic overtones like the Western music, because Western music was not created. They replicated or copied from Hindu music and other part of the music. They didn't scientifically evaluated the sensors, that our sensors are not for one integral multiples, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, absolutely not. And that's why we had to create the instrument like tabla. There were 7 layers of notes, and Tritantra 3, Sattaguna Raja. So that's why sitar, earlier versions of sitar that Bharat Muni talked about and Vedas talked about, had 3 strings in it. And later, when you don't understand the fundamentals, what you do, you increase the number of strings. And later also, just like chess invented by Hindus, and then when Chinese people came here and copied, they created, instead of 8 x 8, they created 11 x 11. 16 into 16. So they never understood that it is an exploration of science. It is a scientific practice that it's a cosmic practice, cosmic sensory system. So every single feeling and emotion and perception has to be cosmic. So if you feel pain, it should be cosmic. If you feel joy or eternal bliss, it should be cosmic. What does it mean by cosmic? It is that if you go to the far distant planet, and if you try to realize pain, it would have a similar kind of sensory mathematics. The vibrations would have a similar kind of mathematics. Ratio of frequencies will have similar kind of mathematics, just like we have it here. Because Purusha is fundamental independent, and Purusha cannot be touched. It cannot be made unholy. You cannot make it touchable. So, non-physical realm, whatever it is, the guidance principle comes from Purusha, the mathematics. That's the reason if you see flute, distance were never equal between different holes in on it. A harmonium, Taylor never liked. Why? Because it's a harmonic. That's a harmonica. So harmonica cannot be a Hindu instrument. And harmonica, and anharmonic means I want 2.33 times the fundamental frequency. What do you like? 2.37? No. We have to look at in our sensory perception, where is the resonance frequencies and peaks, because of the hardware architecture, because of the Fibonacci series. Fibonacci series, by the way, was not invented by Fibonacci. It was not, I mean, Fibonacci learned it from Hemchandra. Now we know that 100 years before, in the 11th century, Hemchandra documented it, and Hemchandra's document went to Italy, Pisa, and where from Fibonacci learned it. But actually more than 300 or 400 BC Pingala's time, those mathematics of different Pascal's, just like Pascal's triangle, Pingala's, and all these mathematical sequences that time were created during the time of Panini, when he was creating the architecture of sound and others. So this kind of different series were born in India, because you have to create infinity, infinite series. If you do not create infinite series, you cannot have Satta Guna. So Satta Guna and requires an infinite series and projection to infinity and get feedback from infinity. So you have to create that kind of ratios, complex ratios. So that's why those who wish to create musical instruments in India, they used to have hundreds of such instruments all around the room, and they will play one when they were making a new one, and all the instruments in the room should resonate. And that's why they used to fix, and this practice were going on for thousands and thousands of years. So my father told me a story when he went to a musical shop to a person who they had 500 years of legacy, and they had instruments of 500 years in the room. Slowly we are destroying our culture, but we need to bring it back. When you know the mathematics, when you know the Purusha, we can regenerate and revitalize Hinduism. Nobody can stop it.